We will go ahead and get started. I have a couple more trickle. This is much more of a specialized class, if you will. I don't know that we have a lot of people that are geofarming. Very few. So I assume if you're here, you have an interest to potentially geofarm or you are farming. All right, but with that said, let's dig a little deeper on specifics on why we're here. So Robert, what is you're hoping to gain today?
I'm looking for leverage in my neighborhood and neighborhoods that I can get familiar with.
Okay,
Looking for something to be like, not necessarily a household name, but a familiar face or a familiar name.
okay,
You know, within my neighborhood or someone.
all right. The ultimate goal of geofarming is what?
To be the person that the people in your neighborhood call, or a neighborhood call when they're ready to.
Okay, so we want to be the dominant agent in there through what relationships,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, geofarming is no different than anything else. Gonna come down to your ability to build relationships, okay? Alex, what specifically are you looking for?
Just learning mainly, and then same thing,
Okay,
being that made and having that relationship in my neighborhood specifically.
okay. Be top of mind in your personal neighborhood, all right? Yeah,
It pretty much the same thing in the subdivision. I'm in Pleasant Hill, there's about 150 homes.
okay.
And I've been very inconsistent with it
Hmm.
and just kind of want people to learn how to do it the right way.
Okay, very good. Harry?
I think you know my story, I hadn't even thought about this until I saw a house up the street from me going up with Reese Nichols and two literally around the corner with me. Going up with Premier and Keller Williams, and I was like. Thanks.
So what does that immediately tell you about your neighbor?
It means that there will be one going up very soon.
True, okay, so we know your turnover rate is probably decent, which is something we'll have to look at, but then also you said there was 3 different houses for sale with 3 different.
Three different real
Correct.
estate companies.
So what we've already established is most likely there's not a dominant
Correct.
acre. Now, we know there's certain areas. Like Lakewood or Range, you know, as soon as you hear that neighbor, you already start thinking of, oh man, yeah, I see so and so, they're all over the place, right? Doesn't mean that you couldn't go in there and take over that farm. If you did it, like you could probably be more efficient than there, but there are certain places some agents have pretty locked down.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're picking a neighborhood to first begin farming, we would be mindful of that, right? We want to pick something where somebody else hasn't already begun to dominate, so that's kind of an important piece to it, right? What are the pros and cons of geofarming? Let's start with that. What is one of the pros? One of the pros is the fact that I can put together a system that is kind of working for me when I'm not working. Through some of the marketing that we can do, the stuff we get in place. So I have a system that's working when I'm not. That would be a pro. Now a con would be, and this is why I really caution newer agents on geofarming is it a cheap strategy or is it an expensive strategy? It can be fairly expensive if done properly. Can you get a good return? Yes, but there's going to be initial expense. Is this something where you're gonna start picking up listings quickly? No, geofarming is one that takes time because you embed yourself in the neighborhood, you become the common household name. And generally with the geo farm, if you get that first listing, that first 9 to 12 months, we're like, okay, good. That's a good target, okay? Because that's a national average of geo farm, 9 to 12 months to get that first opportunity, right? Now the next piece of that is once you get an opportunity, you better make sure you're ready for that. Okay? Because if you put in all that work to finally get that opportunity and then I go in and blow that listing appointment, do neighbors talk? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you have to make sure that every other, part of your ship is tight, right? I run a very tight ship here, meaning when I get that opportunity, I don't go in and bomb it, right? I go in and have a marketing strategy ready, like I'm squared away when I go in, okay? That means having that ultimate fan experience ready, it means having all the marketing pieces ready, you're comfortable with your dialogue, all that stuff has to happen. Because the worst thing that could happen is you get in there, find you with an opportunity and we don't get the list. Okay, that would be hard. Now, if it happens, we'll deal with it, right? But that's not our goal. Okay, so let's start working our way through and we'll just go straight from the action plan here. The first thing that we need to think about is the actual location of our farm. So there's some key components that we need to think about. The first thing is is the size manageable? Now, what do I mean by that? Is the size manageable? And the next piece goes right into, does it fit your financial budget? Okay, but what do I mean when I say, is it manageable?
Not too many residents is more than what your budget allows you to.
Yeah. So for point two, definitely can I afford it, because if I commit to this, I have to be all in, okay? Because if I just start this and then quit 6 months later and say, oh, this ain't working, I just wasted all that time, money and effort, so I have to be willing to commit. And when we say manageable, you're gonna be out there door knocking this neighborhood, you're gonna be embedding yourself in this neighborhood. And could you imagine going and trying to knock on the doors in Lakewood on a regular basis?
Isn't there like 1,400?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can try, but that's gonna be pretty rough, right? It's like, no, I wanna start, especially when I'm starting farming, I'm gonna pick something a little bit smaller. Maybe a couple hundred homes or something like that, because then I know, now my farm when I started was 355. And I didn't realize like how much time the first day I went out door knocking, I thought I could do the whole thing in one day. That was foolish, right? Plus I was wearing dress shoes, you know how bad that starts to hurt after a while? Hour after hour after hour, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna bring in some help here. And we're gonna get some more comfortable shoes, okay? Because you're going to be knocking in this neighborhood multiple times a year, if you wanna do it effectively. In a moment, we're gonna talk about 6 different prongs of an effective geo farm. Now, the problem is you'll get people that think they can send out a recipe card with maybe a little information once a month, and they call that farming. And then maybe a calendar once, that is not geo farming, okay? That's literally wasting money. But yet we see a lot of agents doing that under the guise of, I'm geo farming. Now, can a blind squirrel find a nut every once in a while? Sure, okay? But that is not going to be an effective farm. So we have 6 prongs that we teach. And I think you need to adopt at least 4. If you have 4 of the 6, then you have a chance to have an effective farm. If you do less than that, I'm not gonna guarantee any kind of results for you, okay? But as we go through this, you'll see it just starts to make sense on how these different strategies work to actually build relationships for you, okay? So we talked about size. I would encourage you to keep it smaller to begin with. And the nice thing is, remember, everything that we do is a long-term strategy. Very little of what we teach is get rich quick, right? This is something you have to commit to, you have to put in the work, and if you do that, you will get great results. So with the farm, I would rather you start with a smaller geographic area, put in the time, effort, start getting return on that, and then you can start reinvesting some of that return maybe to a neighboring farm or pick up a second farm. Don't try to extend yourself too large to begin with.
100 and 200 or is
I think that's a perfect number to get started with, okay? Because from a statistical standpoint, let's just say you have a farm of 100 homes. How many of those homes are going to list every year statistically?
10?
Probably. Why did we come up with that number? How do we say that? How can I statistically justify that?
Isn't it metrics from NAR?
It is from NAR. How often do people move? So on average, if people move every 10 years, well, then if I have 100 homes, I should be able to statistically expect 10 of them to sell. Now, it may fluctuate a little bit. We'll talk about turnover rates here in a minute, how you can figure that. Okay, but that would be an average. I should expect that. Now, am I gonna get all 10 listings? Probably not. All right, but eventually, as I embed myself, there's other things you can do, and we'll talk about that shortly. Now, the next kind of thing we want to be looking for is, does it contain like-kind homes? Why does that matter, and what does that mean?
Similar styles, you're gonna look at, make sure that there's some sort of continuity in the neighborhood as far as styles, pricing, condition, things like that. And then that way that arms you with more information to take to those door knocks when they ask, what's the average home sale, or how long was it on market? You can go armed with those specifics to provide them on the spot and be able to be a resource instead of just some random down the door.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right, because what happens is if I have a neighborhood, like I farmed Amber Hills, okay, so Amber Hills, all the homes were built in the mid-90s, You got 3 or 4 different floor plans, similar size, similar finishing, like all that, so I could become an area expert pretty darn quickly, right? You get used to those homes, I study the pricing on, I know about those homes. Is it easier for me when I'm out door knocking and somebody stops me with a question about values and everything about the farm? Is it easier for me to answer in a farm like that, or if I'm over there farming Walden?
Easier.
It's gonna be a whole lot easier for me to be an area expert right there than Waldo or Brookston, or just one of those other neighborhoods where like you have a Hobbit Hubble next to this 2-story colonial. It's like, there's just a big difference, right? There's so many variables. It's a lot easier for me to become an expert in this, neighborhood where all of the houses are very similar. Does that make sense? So I really want to establish myself there, right? The next thing is it in the desired price point? What does that mean?
Means you're not selling $75,000 homes.
Yeah, probably not gonna farm a neighborhood of $75,000. I agree with that, right? I wanna pick the farm that matches what? The price point I'm looking for. What kind of price point might we be looking for an initial farm?
Somewhere between 2 and 400,000.
Yeah, why would you pick between 2 and 4?
Because it's fairly average. I live in the mid-70s, late 70s neighborhood, and neighboring homes are going for, anywhere between, I think one right next door was priced at 275, sold at 315. And then there's one getting finished across the street that's gonna be 325 by the time it's all said and done.
Okay, so we established the price, but why would I target that? Why would I do that? Versus the 600s?
Probably more there.
Do what?
More common.
More common, okay.
That's like,
Is it also, I mean, to me, it'd be just like the reason that it's maybe better to target. Whether you're buyers or sellers, is the more expensive houses, because you do less work to make the same money. And
Could be.
it's easier on your budget.
Could be, so Jeff is saying maybe we do target the 600. There's really no right or wrong to this, okay? You get to choose what you want to do. Me personally chose the 200 to the 350 or whatever, because those were starter level homes, and I know that those turn a lot, okay? Because I know that people that are entering into home ownership are probably gonna buy in that bracket. And then life happens and they have a couple kids, and then it's time, you know what, our jobs, we've got some promotions. I wanna move up, right, so I want a bigger house. It seems that those starter level homes have good turnover rates. And that's what I'm looking for. I want lots of signs in the ground, so I want lots of turnover in the neighborhood. Okay, fair enough. So again, you get to pick and choose, but I personally like that entry point because they generally have a lot of movement in those neighborhoods, okay? The next thing, is there currently a dominant agent? If I say Lakewood, who immediately pops to mind?
Aaron Potter.
Okay, Aaron Potter would be one, yes. Van Noy, right, there's ones out there, you're like, oh, yeah, okay. So I'm not saying, who was the one who in today used to call him Tony Tiger, right? So that's a name from the past a little bit, right? But these are ones that have established themselves in these neighborhoods, not saying you can't go after it. But why not go after a neighborhood that doesn't already have somebody established, okay?
Well, Pleasant Hill, where I'm in, though, I mean, Reasonable Shoemaker pretty much has the whole thing to control all the other people listed there, but. Sure. I mean, that's the name most people think of.
Yeah. So can you change that?
Yeah.
Absolutely, okay? Because they might just be the biggest name because that's just who's there. So once we get in and embed ourselves, then they start seeing us over and over. So some of the concepts of what we're teaching here come from the original 8 and 8 that Remax teaches, right? Who can tell me what the 8 and 8 is? Where did it come from? What does it mean? Sorry. So Bob Herder was the advertising firm out in California. And they did a study, and what they did was they surveyed this area of people. And they said, if you were gonna buy or sell today, who would you name? And they got this big hodgepodge amount of different answers. Everybody and all these different agents who just didn't know. So what Alberta did is they created a fictitious realtor. Okay, and then they launched what they call an 8 and 8 campaign. So they mailed something once a week for 8 weeks into this geographic area. Completely fake realtor. Okay. Then they went and surveyed that exact same group again. And what do you think they found out?
Most people would use the fake realtor.
Yep. The overwhelming majority said that they would use this fictitious realtor that didn't even exist. So what they learned from that was what? They learned that you can buy the #1 spot in someone's mind in 8 weeks. By simple visibility, okay? Now, are we gonna mail once a week, every week to 300 homes? That would be a little bit pricey. But can we accomplish the same thing over a longer period of time? Yes, we can, okay, and we'll talk about how to do that. But that's kind of where a lot of that originated from, was that study saying, hey, you can establish yourself to be #1, okay? Now, we live in the world of the internet, so you have to make sure if you're gonna be farming, you better make sure your online presence backs up what you're doing, okay? Because they're gonna get your material and they may Google you, and they better be seeing some reviews, they better be seeing some profiles. They better be able to say, okay, yes, I'm getting their stuff, everything sounds good, I looked them up online, man, the reviews sound really good. This is an agent I'm comfortable with, okay? So that's something we want to be working on as well. But as far as finding a dominant agent, how do I do that? How can I determine if there's a dominant agent in a neighborhood? Okay, and how do I do that in MLS?
So you can look at their statistics on their actual profile or what their sales are.
So you mean go through each agent?
Yes, that's
That would be terrible. It is 14,000. Okay, you what?
neighborhood, neighborhood, by subdivision.
Okay, so I'm gonna go pull up my subdivision in MLS. And I can look at everything that's been listed over the last year, correct? But what am I looking for when I look at, let's say I pull up a neighborhood and I have 32 listings. What am I looking for when I pull up that, single line display? I'm looking at, here's all the houses that have listed. What am I looking for?
You're looking for sold, expired.
Yeah, I'm pulling up everything, it's everything that's been listed. I'm looking for dominant agent, how do I determine? What's on the far right side on every one of those single lines? It's gonna be an office code, correct? So I'm looking at all 32 of these solds, I'm looking to the right, and I'm gonna see, is there a reoccurring office code? Because our office code is what, RMX19. So if Robert's dominated a neighborhood, I'm gonna pull that up, and let's say there's 32, and I see a bunch of codes, and I'm seeing RMX19, 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 I'm like, ooh. This office is listing a lot of houses in this neighborhood, and then I'm gonna click on every one of those. And I'm gonna see, is this just random? Or is every one of these Robert? It's like, oh, Robert, oh, Robert, oh, Robert, oh, Robert. It's like, okay. We might have a dominant agent there. Doesn't mean you can't take it on, we just need to be aware of it. Because that name might come up when you're out in the farm, they may say, hey, Robert? Yeah, we get his stuff, okay. I've got some competition here, okay? But what I would tell you is there is a lot of neighborhoods out there that don't have a dominant agent. So there's fair game, okay? So, but we do want to establish that. The next thing that we want to look at is turnover rate. What's the minimum turnover rate for a neighborhood that I'm willing to accept? 6%, that is correct. How do I factor that?
Check the number of homes. Number of solds divided by the number of homes in the neighborhood.
Okay, is it solds that I'm interested in or listed? I'm interested in the listed, okay? Let's say I have a neighborhood of 100 homes, okay? I don't really care whether they expired, sold, that doesn't matter. Because maybe that's the agent's fault. All I care about is how many sellers in this neighborhood chose to list their home. All right. And let's say that I had 9. I had 9 listings over the last year, what is my turnover rate? 9%, I made it super easy, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, 9%, so I'm looking at that, like, okay, there's no, first off, it's manageable, it's 100 homes. Okay? They're all very similar, so they're like kind. Okay, and if they're 100 homes, I know my so I can afford it, so I've already answered 3 of them, right? Is there a dominant agent? I've looked at that. They're all in my desired price point. And my turnover rate works. Could I farm this neighborhood? Yes, this is one I would say, okay, I will farm it. Could be your personal neighborhood you wanna start with. Could be a different one, completely up to you, all right? So I've now established that this farm is good to go. What am I gonna do next?
Figure out exactly which houses you're gonna hit,
Okay, I'm gonna hit every one of them,
okay?
okay? Yep, just kind of work your way down the list, right?
Then figure out what, how you're gonna approach it, like, what are you gonna?
That's not until step 3.
Check tax record.
Okay, the thing is, I have to figure out how am I going to create the database? Okay, I have to create a database, because what I personally do not like is people sending out farming material that says current resident. I don't like that, don't like that at all. Especially when we have technology so that we don't have to do that, okay? You should be able to mail this specifically to the people that live there, okay? Does that take some work to set it up? You better believe. Okay, you're gonna be putting in some work. So you can either do it yourself or you can hire it out. I know when I built my farm, I actually hired an admin person to go through and do it for me. That's fine, or you can do it yourself. So I could go to tax record. Can I pull up the neighborhood on MLS, map view and start going through it one by one? Yep. That's gonna take you a little while, okay, but you can do it. Yep, it's a pain, but it works, okay? Because I'm gonna pull up every single plot, I'm gonna have my database I'm building, Google Sheet or Excel or wherever you're building it. And I'm putting in their specific names and their address, okay? What happens if I see a name and an address that doesn't match the address of the property?
That's the mailing address.
It's a what?
Business mailing address.
Okay, could be a business mailing address or rental, could be a rental, yep, could be an absentee owner. So should I create a separate list for my absentee owners? I should, right? I'm gonna be marketing something special to those people. Okay, because you never know when a landlord might decide to offload one of the properties. I wanna make sure I'm in front of them. Now, what about the people who are living in that house? Could I have a list of those? Yeah. Yep, I sure could. Now, am I gonna know their names? Nope. So we're gonna have to violate the rule and say. Renter, yeah, my friend at.
I have been able to hear recently, I've been digging around a little bit when it comes to the odd phone numbers with no, just. Trying to respond on open houses, there's a lot of different reverse lookup places that are actually giving you. You can come up with the phone number, then it'll actually pop out some of the last known residents.
Okay,
And it's
So-
intentionally found, but
so you could try to do that if you wanted to use some reverse lookup off the phone number. Our part is getting the phone number, because Remind should be pulling the number off the absentee owner. But if you could find a number, you could certainly do that. So now you'll see I have a list, I have a sheet for what all my owner occupants. Because I'm gonna geofarm to them, right? Then I'm gonna have a list, probably a smaller list of all my absentee owners, which are my investors. So I can develop some investor related content for them, correct? And then I'm gonna have a list of my renters. And what goes to my renters? The advantages of buying versus renting, right? I am trying to snipe those from those landlords, okay? So that's gonna be the 3 different lists. You can get it through the tax record there on MLS. You can use Remind to go in and find some of these things, or as I said, you can hire it out, okay? Question is, how do you store it? Already talked about that. I just used an Excel sheet. You can do it in your CRM, that's completely up to you, but you need to have a place where you can very easily be in there updating this CRM, okay? Because what are you doing every month? And this should be on your calendar for geofarming. What am I doing every month with that database? I am doing mailers, yes, I'm updating, that's what I'm looking for, right? Because every month there are people that sell, they may not use me, but they have sold. I need to update my database, how do I do that? I can go in, go to tax record, it will pull up the new owner. Now, if I see one is sold and it's not updated yet, I need to highlight it, so that next month I come back and check it again. I don't wanna be sending stuff to them with the other people's name on it, okay, so I need to be getting those things updated. That takes time, it has to be intentionally done every month to keep your database clean. So if you're gonna commit to farming, you gotta commit to that. Okay? Here's another little tip. When somebody moves into the neighborhood, if I'm the dominant agent, should I introduce myself? Yes. I absolutely should. If I know their name, if I've met them, can I then go around to all their surrounding neighbors and let them know who moved it in and actually have welcome cards that I give to them and say, hey, would you mind filling this out and sending it to your neighbor? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Is that not a cool touch? Every time somebody moves in, I go hit all the neighbors, hey, this is your new neighbor, here's some cards, would you do me a favor, it's already addressed, stamped and everything, write them a quick thank you, and you think that's gonna make you stand out? Do you think the neighbors around that are gonna remember that? Do you think that the person that just moved in, who just got your welcome basket, and then starts getting all of these things, is gonna remember you? Yep, probably so, okay? Question is, are you willing to commit to that? Okay, the key is, how do we stand out? How do we show up differently than everybody else? Other people who are farming are not doing these things, okay? Now, that's not even one of the 6 prongs, that's just one of the added bonuses. Okay, but that is a way to establish yourself as a neighborhood household name. All right, now we're gonna get to the actual 6 prongs, okay? What is it that we actually do to establish ourselves as the household name? Number 1, what is it?
Monthly mailers.
Yeah, we're gonna get into our mailboxes every month, okay? Now, here's the question, what do we mail them? Should I send them a recipe card?
No, they probably got enough of those.
Okay, could I include a recipe on my piece? Certainly, I could, but what do people really want? Now, remember, when we're talking about our advocates, do we send them real estate content? No, we don't, right? Our advocates do not get real estate content. Why? They already know us, like us, trust us. I don't puke real estate on them. They're like, leave me alone. None of that applies to me, right? Okay? These are not top advocates. All right? What is it that every homeowner wants to know? Value of their home. Yep. It needs to be value driven. So how do we do that in a monthly mailer? What does my piece look like?
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Heartland, our monthly market report,
Okay, meaning
meaning.
that little graphic?
Yep.
You know,
Okay, we can do that, but that's not specific enough for a farm,
okay,
okay? So I'll show you what our piece, I'll tell you, so on our piece, we always had. Just like a little map, and it would show the whole neighborhood, and it'd have little flags for everything, and we gave them a 90-day market update. On that market update, our little map would kind of have little pins for every house that either hit the market, went under contract, or sold, because that's what they want to know, all right? And then there would be a line for each one of those, and it would have the address, it would have the details of the house as far as bed, bath, square footage, and it would show on there either the list price or the sold price. So that means every month when we sent our mailer, we did ours through the personal marketing company. So we just had a template, and every month we went and pulled the data. And we sent it to them, so okay, here's the 6 houses that are currently on the market in the last 90 days. Here's their prices, here's the ones that have closed. That's what people want to see. They want to know, what are the houses selling for in my neighborhood, therefore what roughly is my house worth, okay? That is data that people want to see. The recipe about the blueberry crumble is like, that's great, but they really want to know, what is my home worth? And then you add the rest, that's fine, okay? What else could I be putting into this monthly piece that would provide value to them? To make them look forward to receiving it on a monthly basis.
What's going on in the area?
Okay, I could add something on that, that'd be good, what else? Think value driven. What do you think?
Could you talk to local businesses and get some sort of a coupon
There
discount?
you go, yep. You have a monthly. Vendor. File. And what that means is throughout the year, I'm gonna send 12 pieces, right? And those 12 pieces. Can have a specific vendor, one of your people, or. You could even do a neighborhood business spotlight and actually highlight different business, and once you get established enough. Start highlighting the other businesses in the neighborhood, but what to Jeff's point is, I'm offering a coupon. At springtime, is it time to service your AC unit? Yes, it is, right? Could I get with my HVAC guy and get them $50 off an AC service? Yes, they use a specific code, that way the vendor knows this is coming in from the farm. So we're benefiting us by being able to give them value, they start looking forward to that every month. Our vendor is now getting additional business, getting in front of more people to grow their business, right? It's a win-win for everybody. Because now the homeowner is also getting $50 off a service that they need. What about a bug spray or termite inspection or whatever? All you need is 12 of them, come up with 12 ideas that give value, build business for your vendors, and you just put them on a repeat. Okay, because it's not costing the vendor anything. Now, in theory, if you build it enough where people start using your codes, I would feel perfectly fine with going to the vendor and saying, you're getting a lot of business from this, you need to partner with me on the cost of the mail. Right, and now they're vested every single month, right? You have a different vendor chucking in half the cost, like that is definitely a win-win for everybody, okay? And the goal is we want our people in the neighborhood to be looking forward to that piece to say, what am I getting this month? And it doesn't just have to be that, what about you have a friend that owns a restaurant? Hey, give me a QR code for my people to get a, buy one, get one free entree or free appetizer or something.
I was thinking of
Right.
like a nursery, like in spring when you're getting ready to
Yeah.
plant. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a friend or make a connection with a manager or owner at a nursery, anything like that, yes. Buy one, get one free rose bush, whatever it is, okay? We're giving value. You see the difference of a homeowner receiving that versus the piece that says, here's how to make blueberry cobbler, and by the way, if you want to sell your house, call me. There's a big difference between those two pieces, okay? So that's number one. Number two. Now let's make sure we cover everything. Yeah, so we got that, yes. Yeah, so just really, if you do have that separate list of your investors versus your renters, just make sure that you are marketing to them appropriately. Okay, so we have our monthly mailer that's going out, okay? That's one, but remember how I said there's 6. Okay, what's number 2? Yeah, Facebook group. You'll notice it's not a page. Why are we doing a group over a page?
More interaction.
Yeah. My page can fall off their algorithm, never see the light of day again pretty quickly, okay? Group generally is going to keep me in front of them much better, okay? This is going to take work. Geofarming requires work. I have to build this, and through my door knocking and QR codes and all of that, I'm trying to get all of the people from the neighborhood into the Facebook group. Because at that Facebook group, what should I be putting on that? How regularly should I be posting? What do you think?
Today.
Okay, once a day. I say 3 times a week, right, your minimum there. Okay, you could do it 5 times, once a day, right? What am I posting on it? Am I posting that I'm an awesome realtor? I would love to come list your house?
No.
Probably not, okay? What am I posting on?
Probably the same things that are gonna be in your mailer,
Okay.
you could duplicate a lot of that.
Okay, I could send my coupon code out there, so data, yep, I could do that, what else? Remember, it needs to be relevant to them, it needs to be valuable to them. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you know of anything going on in the neighborhood, that should go on here. If there's nothing going on in the neighborhood, let's say it is in Lee Summit, what's going on in Lee Summit? What are some restaurant spotlights I can do? What are some business spotlights I can do from Lee Summit? If I have nothing from Lee Summit, then what can I do? Kansas City as a whole, what's going on? Here's some entertainment for the weekend. Okay, here's the new movies that are out, right? Like, the possibilities are endless. But it's gonna be your job every week to have content that's going out. To me, again, probably 3 times a week, you can do it 5 times, but then that can really become a burden of attention, so 3 times a week, I can come up with that. And does ChatGPT not provide a lot of content? That I could go on there and tell, like, this is what I wanna do, boom, okay? So I'm putting this content out there regularly, constantly trying to grow it. And then once you get people from the neighborhood in there, are they gonna get other neighbors involved? They are, right? They're gonna say, hey, I heard this on the Facebook group, and it's gonna start to grow organically. That's the hope, right? And then again, if I have business owners in my neighborhood, can I give them shout outs and try to grow the business on it? Absolutely I can, okay? So that's the Facebook group. Okay? And also whether I list it or not, can I be promoting the listings in the neighborhood? Yes, I can. I can be putting those on, okay? I know in our neighborhood, we had a group that was called Burgundy Block, and Burgundy was one of the big. Sections there of the neighborhood, okay? We just have a Facebook group dedicated specifically to that purpose, okay?
And you set that up so that anybody in the neighborhood that's a member can post.
With your approval, you review it before it goes, right? 'Cause I don't want just anybody, I want everybody to go post, but I want as the admin to be able to review it first.
And not complaining about us, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so we wanna keep our very productive, very positive. Can I put inspirational things on it? Certainly I can, okay? So there's lots of ideas of what you can be putting out there, but the key is consistently posting items of value. Okay, alright, so that's number 2. What is number 3?
Community events.
Community events. We targeted 2 a year. Okay, what are those? What do those look like?
Activities outside of real estate that are focused on client.
Yeah, these are all community driven. So one that we did, and I really liked it, was a clothing drive. I think it was actually kind of a coat drive and turned into a clothing drive. And we targeted right after Thanksgiving. Everybody's hopefully in a pretty jolly spirit at that point. And we would go around and we'd pick up. So the way we set it up is, several weeks before, we would blanket the entire neighborhood. And that's hard. You're going around your door knocking all over that neighborhood. And we would bring with us, every house got a flyer, a very pretty color flyer, talking about what we're doing, because we partnered with Coldwater here in Lee Summit, okay? So we went around, here's our flyers, and when people see you coming, until they get to know you, like, they'll run from you first, right? So like, you might be racing them to the garage, like, hey, I'm not trying to sell anything. And it's amazing, or they'll open the door at a crack, you know, they're like, who are you, what do you want? But the moment they find out you're not selling something, and you're actually part of the neighborhood, and you're gonna do something to benefit local charity, it's amazing how those doors start opening up and conversations start happening. You're not saying anything about real estate. Okay? And the goal is eventually they start seeing you and they're like, wait a minute, you're that face from that mailer I keep getting. You're that face on the Facebook group. It's like, yeah, that's me, right? And that's how we start embedding in here, okay? But anyway, so we give them each a trash bag, and we gave them each that flyer, and we said, look, we will be here, you know, on this date between this hour and this hour, please have all your stuff out on the porch. Now, the first time I did it, I was like, man, I don't know if this is gonna work or not, let's just see. So we hit all 355 houses, and then the day arrived, so I jumped in my car, SUV, and started driving over there, and I can't tell you how cool it was. The very first house that I went by, I saw a bag on the porch, I was like, that's cool. And we ended up smashing all of this, and this SUV was just smashed full of all these bags, and I was like, wow, this actually is great. And then so that was one that we did several times, because I really enjoyed it. Another thing that we did was spring cleaning day, brought in a huge rollback dumpster, parked it in the neighborhood. You gotta be careful with that, where you're gonna park, any permission on that, right? But anyway, everybody can bring all they clean out your garage, bring us all your crap, right? Throw it in our dumpster, so you can just sit there and talk with them as they're bringing their stuff and throw it in. You can do a shred day, there's all kinds of ideas. Where do we have a pet drive thing, lots of different things, that you can do. Okay? Why are we doing that?
Exposure, and it makes you look like you're a good person.
Exactly. I'm looking like a good person.
I mean, and you have somebody that if they can trust that when I say that, I mean. If you look like somebody and you're doing things that they know that, hey, that's an honest guy, that's an ethical guy, that's a guy that cares, he's the kind of guy I want to sell my house,
Yeah, you're building trust.
yeah.
You're building trust with them, you're building rapport, you're building relationship. And I'm not talking about real estate at all, but how often do they come up when I ask a question about the market? That's where it happens, right? Another thing I forgot too is on the mailer is a QR code for a free home evaluation, right? So they can do that, go straight to your website, they can put in their information and boom, you can just submit it, okay? So that's there for it, you use home.com, okay? So we're up to 3. So we have a monthly mailer, we have our Facebook group going, and we have these events we're doing. Are you already starting to see how this is different than most people approach farming? Yes, okay, you're starting to see, wow, there's actually some work involved in this, but I found it kind of fun. Like, I like this is the kind of stuff I like to be doing. Okay, a whole lot more than cold calling or something like that. So we have those. What's next? Appreciation events. Okay, what does that mean?
Pool day.
Okay, yeah. If your community has a pool in it, has a clubhouse, can I reserve that? Can I rent that out and have a big event? I certainly can. Maybe they have a big green space, I bring in the bouncy house, and we bring in some grills, right? I'm trying to do something at least once a year. I know we had some folks here that were doing a farm, and they would do like a movie at the park night, so they bring in a big screen and put up a movie, and they have popcorn there and all that kind of stuff. Lots of different ideas, again, why am I doing that?
Become familiar to them.
I want to be the common household name. Cause I'm there, not even talking about real estate, but they know who you are. Yeah, building a relationship and you're wearing your swag, I got my Remax on at the event, okay? Everybody loves free stuff, everybody loves free stuff, that is true, okay? And does it even matter, let's say I do a pool party, does it even matter how many show up? Really doesn't, right? Cause where's the power?
Letting them know that.
Yeah, it's in the invite, the power is always in the invite, so sometimes people will do an event like, look, I didn't have a lot of people show up, why, who cares? Who cares, I don't care how many people show up, it's the power in the invite, it's the power of the conversation I had, and maybe they just couldn't make it, but am I still accomplishing my mission? Yeah, and if they come, that's great, because it's an additional rapport, but it's not a success or failure based on how many show up, that's my personal opinion. It's about how many people I talk to and how I was able to strengthen the relationship through those conversations, okay? And then we stay consistent with it, and eventually more and more will start to come. All right, so we have the annual events, what else?
What is that? Just listed, just sold, what does that mean?
Yep. So we have just listed or sold. Now. Will be honest, I am generally not a huge fan of the just listed, just sold postcards. When I first got into the industry, everybody told me to do it, and I started doing it, and I got 0 return on my money. That's literally like taking a shotgun out there and just blasting. Here's the deal. You might get one, it's possible. But there are so many better ways to use your money more intentionally and more effectively, in my opinion, based on my experience. However, in a geo farm, I do believe that just listed and just sold, when done strategically and correctly, can be powerful. Now, I was farming Amber Hills, and let's say that I sold a house in Sterling Hills that looked exactly like the house in Amber Hills. Could I use that as a just sold marketing piece in Amber Hills? Yes, I can. How can I do that? You don't have to put an address on it. I can send out a just listed card or just sold, either one. Picture of the house. I don't have to have the address on it. They're like, dang, he just listed another one. It's an evidence of success that goes along with all your other marketing that not only is this agent in front of us, but this agent is also doing business. Okay. So if you're going to use just listed or just sold, that's where I would use them, and they would be very strategic. I wouldn't be blasting them every single month with that, but it would just be periodically. If I'm going to do one, I'm going to drop those seeds into the farm. Okay, because that's what we call evidence of success. I don't just want to be in front of them. I want them to actually see that, no, this is an actual activating, like stuff has happened. Okay. Does it even have to be yours? What if your office listed one in the neighborhood? Can I get permission and then blast that one up? Yes, I can. Just listed, Remax Heritage. Now it's in the neighborhood, so I'd probably go ahead and add the address. Okay. So that would be the area I would use just listed or just sold.
Right, what's that, is it possible to handle that in any way with somebody from another company?
You mean, using one of theirs?
That, yeah, if you just drop by and take pictures, say, hey, this house just sold, or this house was just listed. I mean, you're kind of, I guess you're kind of advertising.
Yeah, you would just change the verbiage on a little bit, you know, because on the just listed, just sold, it's like, I did this, like, I just caused this to happen. So if you use somebody else listing, I wouldn't have a problem with it necessarily, it's a public record. You would have to use your own photo for sure.
Yeah,
I would just be careful to not take credit anywhere along there for that sale. So I don't think you have a violation there, just be careful how you do it. But the good news is, you know, the office as a whole for sure is gonna be listing houses either in your neighborhood or similar to it, and you could use without issue, okay? Number 6,
My favorite.
yes, agent insight, right? You should be doing agent insights in your farm. Why? Top of mind again, if you're talking with somebody, tell them, hey, Google our neighborhood, who's gonna come up? You are. Most likely you'll be one of those top, you know, the first, when something gets Googled, the first 3 spots are what? Just pay, so they pay, right? Well, I'm not gonna pay, so I should be popping up right below one of those topics or one of those lines, right? For sure should be showing up on the first page. It's just another way to have evidence of success, okay? Now, could I even take that a little bit further and take my agent insights for, you know, anything I want and do geo-targeted ads through Facebook? Could I do that? Of course I can do that, right? I can geo-target that exact neighborhood, so that not only are they getting my mailer, they see me just in the Facebook group providing value, they see these other things, and now I'm actually showing up on some paid stuff on the phone. Could I do that? Sure, I do. You get to choose, okay? But agent insights are not that difficult. If I was farming, I'd be doing at least once a month for my farm. Okay? And I could be doing events, there's all kinds of different things I could be doing to keep me current on the SEO, so anybody searching the neighborhood, they see my posts. Okay? I can even blog about the neighborhood, there's all kinds of things that I can do. Okay? All right. Any questions about these 6 prongs?
Where do they see agent insights? Whatever they Google?
Yep.
It takes them to.
Yep, it'll pull up your insights. So if I Google, just say you did Lakewood, if you were doing agent insights on Lakewood and somebody Googles Lakewood, right? You're gonna be one of the things that pops up because they use that as SEO for Google to see, oh, here's recent content that's been original content that's been written about Lakewood. So somebody who's interested in moving to Lakewood might like to see this content. So Google's gonna show them that. Okay? And you can use it a lot for going to listings, things like that.
so I was talking to another agent I heard the other day, yesterday, who was talking about tagging, like through Meta. And so people are in that area and they pull up stuff, your stuff is showing up.
Yeah.
Through the tagging that you've done and like starting at like a bar where a lot of people are or what have you.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you can do that like in your whole subdivision.
You can, yeah, that's that kind of geo-targeting
Yeah.
in Facebook, right, pay, if you wanna pay for that, okay?
How often can you do an agent inside for the same neighborhood? Like how, well, I know you can do it however often you want, but how frequently should you?
I would just do it once a month.
Okay, on that specific neighborhood, okay.
Unless something, specific came up in my phone and grabbed next to one, covering the neighborhood garage sale, that's fun. I would target once a month. I'm putting fresh content out there about my subdivision, okay? Any questions on that? Okay, so then, the next thing is, what are the action items? Now, we kind of already covered that first one. So it's that monthly review to update the database, right? So you're finding the recently sold properties, using tax records to make sure you're keeping that updated, okay? Identify monthly business spotlight and discount offering, we covered that, correct? And the cool part is, once you build that initial database, really 12 is what you need. I need 12 vendors for sure. Is there any reason I can't just keep recycling them? No, I can use them, I can add ones, I can pull some off, that's gonna become pretty easy, okay? This says the bi-weekly agent insight, I think. Keep in mind, if it's agent insight, it needs to be neighborhood specific only once a month for that.
Okay.
Okay, once a month is gonna be adequate. Cause we don't need to be blasting anyone, because the chances of somebody else doing that neighborhood. Not very good, and anyway, you will come back up to the top again as soon as you do your next. Okay, so once a month will be fine. Submit information for print distribution, yes, again, you may choose to do this yourself, you may create your own template with Canva. And create your own cards or mailers, that's fine, you get to choose. We did use the personal marketing company, I think we paid like a little over $1 per mailer, I'm like, that's pretty good, because that's including postage. So it's hard to beat that, okay? Yes.
So would you recommend, because I have things ready to like hand deliver. They're not like 75 or 100 ready to go.
Yeah.
It's been like 1,000 degrees. I've used that as my excuse, which I should not,
Yeah.
but anyway. So would you recommend, like for the first time, for sure, hand deliver, but then would you do the monthly mailer after that, or would you like go back and forth, or what would you do?
No, because the door knocking is gonna come in with the things like this. So that's gonna give me a couple door knocks in here, that's gonna be sufficient. Okay, that's what I need. Because it's. From an effort standpoint, and time standpoint. I can't be door knocking like 300 homes every month, it's gonna need too much time, but I can strategically do it a couple times, okay? All right, so yeah, we're gonna talk about the plan to execute biannual events, yes. We talked about the just listed, just sold, post to the social media group 3 times a week, that's kind of what we're targeting. Gives you some, and make sure you identify those days, the cool part is, move all this to your schedule, all right, put it all in the schedule, and then boom, it's just happening. Okay, on the schedule, all right. You can use the home bot, I did put that in there, and then you have your annual appreciation event, okay? So those would be actually taking these prongs and putting action items onto the calendar. Okay. All right, that brings us to the end of our time. Do you have any questions? Yeah. Okay, Jeff first, and then, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm not familiar with the home bot.
HomeBot is, I like it, I personally use it, but it is $50 a month, but it is a service and you get to put all your homeowners in. And it sends them what they call a digest every month, and it's this very nice, professional looking valuation of their home. And it includes a lot of data like what their mortgage is, so how much equity they built, it shows them what the value is, it says if you want to turn this into a rental, this is how much you could rent it for, if you turn it into an Airbnb, this is what you could get from an Airbnb. If you chose to sell it, you choose to sell it, you could afford this kind of home, so there's a lot of information on HomeBot. And it's one of my highest open pieces of digital mail that I send. Over 80% of my HomeBot mail is open.
Does it look like it's coming from you?
Yep. Yeah, and then people can go in and request evaluation or go in and personally tune it, like, hey, I gotta redo my bathroom. Then they love doing that, cause then they get the, you know, they'll go in and we'll tweak the value, they get the new value of their home, right? So they really enjoy it, so.
And that's,
So you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just asking, that's email, they get it,
Yes.
like, okay.
And that's, so you have to go tweak it, it's not the home bot's not using the statistics currently.
No, it will, but when they do upgrades like that, then it's gonna send you an alert, so then I go in and say, okay, based on what I see. Boom, and I can personally tune it for them, okay, rather than wait. To do it. Okay, so they have to adapt and like home bot doesn't locate that. Okay, alright, Alex, what do you got?
How easy is it for you to like get local vendors to give you like coupons, like they give you physical coupons, you send them?
Just a code.
Code,
I mean,
or?
I don't think they're gonna give you a physical one. The only thing we got was a physical was like Andy's giving us ice cream cones and things like that. We've done that. But generally, I just need a code from them so that they recognize when somebody books an AC service, it's like, oh. Yeah, or I can partner with the lender. It could be, you know, if they are thinking of moving, it's like half off an appraisal. There's things like that that I can offer to those people. Because that would be something I might send to what, the vendors. Okay, I get everything I'm buying, I gotta lender this, you know, maybe give you free appraisal, right, things like that. Because the way you're gonna sell it to the vendors are, I'm helping you grow your business, like it's not costing you anything other than giving this discount. And if it's a vendor that refuses to play ball, then it's like, yeah, maybe you don't belong on my vendor list, right? Because I'm just trying to help you grow your business here. Okay, but a lot of it just comes down to your strength with the other business owners, that relationship you have with them.
You do that with local business, like restaurants?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah, if you've got connections, use them. Okay, if you don't have connections, go build some. Right,
Cause even without field farming, like, I could use them for mailers.
absolutely. Yep, they can be things specific to your SOI, because remember, we're always trying to add value to our advocates, right? Is that a way to add value? Yes, it is. Right, because you're part of my group, my MVP program, my top advocate group, you get this discount. And it's exclusive to you all. Right? You can definitely do that. Other questions? Okay, if you need anything further, let me know, but that's it for today, so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
My pleasure.